Then we're going to go live. All right, so just give us a minute if y'all don't mind. Bear with us while we go through the tech stuff that takes a few minutes. We got to talk about some water today, which is awesome and exciting. All right. Share to a group. Indian Water Collective. Hitting it, going live. I'm just gonna make sure that we're live on our phone, or I'm gonna check my phone to make sure we're live, and then we will get everything started. Looks like we're live. Oop, got a couple people waiting in the waiting room. Yeah, take care of that. Sorry, y'all. There's always a couple minutes here in the beginning that's like, gotta get it all ready. Cool. Amazing science of living structured water. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. We're ready. You good, Louise?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, guys, welcome to the webinar, our webinar for today, which is the amazing science of living structured water. And Louise and I have called in no tech issues. So we are going to make sure that happens. But we're going to talk to you guys about the amazing science of living structured water. And I'm so excited because this is one of my most favorite things that I'm so passionate about talking about. And I know that Louise also is, water is something that's really, really important to her as well. And so I'm so grateful that she decided to join us and be here today. So who the heck are we? Also, if you're joining this and you're watching this live in the Facebook group, please comment below, tell us where you're coming in from, say hello, comment that you're here, so that way that we know you're there, and also so that this live stream gets boosted up in our group, right? So more people get to see it. And so just to do an introduction of us, like who the heck are we and who are you listening to speak? So some of you might know us, some of you might not. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Louise Milleman. I'm an earth-loving, tree-hugging, unschooling, freedom-fighting, world-traveling citizen who went from being a full-time digital nomad traveling the world to now building an off-grid permaculture paradise of a homestead with my husband and my two little girls. And I'm a certified thermographic technician, which many of you might not know what that means, and that's okay. I'm actually going to show you some before and after thermal images later on in the presentation. But basically, it's a very holistic approach to screening the body for health issues or just making sure that your body, like it's like a screening, like a health screening, right? But it's very non-invasive, there's no radiation, it's painless, like it's just like a really, really holistic way of doing so. And so I help people find natural and proactive ways of taking care of themselves. And I love to share about one of the missing pieces I found in so many people's health journey, including my own, which you're going to hear about that in a little bit as well, which is living structured water. So that's a little bit about me. And then I'm going to mute myself while Louise tells you about herself.
So I'm Louise, and I'm a single mum of 4, and I have always just strived for the best. You know, they didn't eat sugar when they were younger, they don't eat gluten and dairy. We've done all that we possibly can. You know, I grew up with the proper Western diet in the 90s with pharmaceutical medications, and you know, I really suffered the consequences. So I've really tried to do something different for my children, and you know, and it's worked for the most part. You know, in the fact that 3 of my 4 children have never had a day off school sick, but I've always been concerned about the water because I knew that tap water wasn't good. I didn't like buying plastic bottles because, you know, I've got 4 kids. We tried it once and it was so much plastic, it was untrue. But you know, they only drink water. So I've been searching for about 2 years for what I could do that I really believed in. And, you know, and then I came across this system and I'm so excited. I'm like, I wanted to literally shout it from the rooftops. So when Louise was like, do you want to come and do a live? I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. So here I am. So as we know, water is life. Our bodies are just made up of 70% of water. You know, it's what sustains us all. It's not just us, it sustains plants, it sustains animals. You know, but for us, you know, it's absolutely vital, and it is the most essential thing to our health, second only to air. And you know, there are systems that might clean the water, but we can do more. And that's what I love about the Kangen, is that we can make it into something that also nourishes us and helps our bodies stay healthy and heal where we're not healthy, all in one glass of water. It's amazing. And you know, as we know, water is not all created equal. You know, we've got the tap water, like I say, where, you know, it just contains neurotoxins, carcinogens, as well as pharmaceutical medication and so many other things. And it's just impossible to know what's in any single glass of tap water. And then you've got the plastic water, where it's, you know, it's in plastic, which like leaches hormone disrupting chemicals and carcinogens into our bodies. And, you know, and we see a lot of people, you know, really wanting to be rid of those things. And I understand. So they go for things like reverse osmosis and distilled water, or even rainwater as well, thinking that that's going to be better. And it is better in that it doesn't have the neurotoxins and carcinogens, but it's completely stripped of everything. So all the minerals are gone as well. And we need the minerals in our water. And without them, we end up with acidic and corrosive water that isn't fit for drinking. And it's a real problem. So what we've got that we create is alkaline hydrogen-rich water. And when I first heard about it, one of the questions I put to Louise was, I was like, yeah, but is this natural? Is this natural? Like, could I get this naturally anywhere? Because I don't necessarily want some synthetic water that doesn't even occur naturally. And then she told me that actually it does occur naturally in the world, but only in a few places. So these are areas located near naturally hydrodynamic and geothermal activity, where the water is charged by the earth. And, you know, I've been to Lourdes in France, and I've witnessed, you know, the changes and the health of people that drink the water there. And that's because the primary qualities of those waters are that it's microclustered, hydrogen rich, and alkaline, which means that it's mineral rich as well. So, you know, you can get all that water and it can do so much good, but, you know, unless we're going to go queue up for hours and hours in those places, you know, because that's what you do. You see the queues, and, you know, and if you don't live there, what are you going to do? Because this water doesn't necessarily last. It can't be transported. And we're blessed in that Japanese technology created the same process that gives us water with the same properties. So, you know, again, that's microclustered with molecular hydrogen and mineral rich, which makes it alkaline. You know, it's called H2 water because of that molecular hydrogen content. And, you know, it's been studied extensively, and it has been proven that electrolyzed reduced water and hydrogen rich water is an effective therapy for many serious health conditions. You know, it can help with things like eczema, psoriasis, heart conditions, brain conditions, inflammation, autoimmunity, digestive problems, neurological conditions, and diabetes related conditions. And, you know, as soon as I started drinking it, I noticed improvements. You know, I monitor my blood sugar levels, and my blood sugars dramatically reduced, slightly too low at one point, but I managed to level that back out. But it was really interesting watching that, and the amount of inflammation. You know, I'm somebody that has a lot of inflammation in my body most of the time, but it's just decreased hugely. And these are proven, you know, they've been researched, and what better way to treat these things than with just water? Like, no, you don't need creams, you don't need tablets, you don't need lotions, you don't need potions, just water. And you can help in all of these areas, which is just phenomenal. So how does it work? So what happens is it goes through water filter, which we'll talk about later. But then it goes into the Kangen machine. And in there, you've got these platinum coated titanium plates, and some of them are negatively charged and some of them are positively charged. And what this does is it attracts the particles in the atoms and the clusters of the water. So it pulls it apart, and therefore we end up with microclustered water. And then it also pulls some of the hydrogen molecules off, and therefore you get molecular hydrogen. And then it pulls all the alkalized water up through the primary water, and the acidic water comes up through the primary hose, and then the acidic water comes out the secondary hose. So you end up with, you can control what level and how much, what the pH is, and it means that you get all different levels, and means that you can use it for all different uses as well. And it's just phenomenal how it works, and it's still just water, which I love. It's nothing more complex or difficult. It's still just water.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I want to show you guys a picture real quick, what she's talking about, because if you see this top hose right here, this is what she means when she says the primary hose. And then this is the secondary hose where the acidic water comes out. So this is the water that you collect to drink. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. If you're on the Zoom, you probably can. If you're on Facebook Live, I don't know if you can, but you see that there's two hoses there. So that's what Louise is talking about when she says primary hose. Like, you can kind of tell in this image, but you can't because it doesn't show you the picture. So all the primary hose water comes out there. So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to show you guys, because I love being able to see the inside of the machine. So you guys kind of have it. People ask me all the time, they're like, well, what do you mean molecular hydrogen? What do you mean microclustered water? Like, what does all that stuff even mean? And so we're going to kind of break that down for you so you can see that a little bit further. But it's important to note that, like Louise talked about, in those 7 or 8 places in the world that you saw, like the Lourdes, France, where she's actually been, which I think is super cool, by the way. I want to go so bad. I really want to go to Nordnott, Germany too. I've had like this deep desire to go there ever since I learned about the water. But these places in the world where people go, and like she said, the queues are so long, and like that's like the line to go in, right? Like people like literally line up to go and like even just bathe in this water, right? And like when they looked at the water, and like all of these people would have all these like miraculous healing stories of like the things that happen. And we don't claim that water cures or heals anything for sure, but we are saying that like people would just come up and say all these amazing things. So they started studying the water, and they realized that the 3 properties they had in the water were the microclustering and that molecular hydrogen, and then it's naturally alkaline, mineral rich, right? And so the same exact properties of the water at those places are the same exact properties of the water that we create in the machines that we have, which is electrolyzed reduced water. And so that's what we're going to talk to you guys about today. And we're going to kind of break down each one of these so you can kind of understand what it is and how it works for our bodies. And so just so you guys know, the 3 of the major causes of illness in the world today are dehydration, acidity in our bodies, and inflammation, right? And so dehydration at the core is like everything. Like, your cell is so important to keep your cell hydrated, right? There's a book, and I'm going to recommend it to every single one of you guys right now. I haven't even finished the whole thing. Oops, got someone joining us real quick. But there's a book, it's called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. You're not sick, you're thirsty. And it's by a doctor who literally has like tons and tons of testimonials about, in case studies, showing that like your body, like literally dehydration of a cell can cause so many different issues that you might not even realize are connected to dehydration, because it's so important. But like, most people are walking around the world today and they don't even know what it feels like to be truly hydrated, because most people are drinking dead water, and dead water does not enter our cells the same way that living water does. And then we have acidity, and we know that disease cannot thrive in an alkaline environment, right? So it would make sense for us to want to kind of create that more of that environment in our bodies. And then we have inflammation, which we know also is like this big bad guy. And when it comes to disease, like inflammation, like we all have a little bit of it, and we all need a little bit of it, to survive. But when it's chronic and excessive, that's when it becomes a problem. So we're going to show you how our water, or the properties of our water, can help with all 3 of these things. And I want to start with dehydration, because I have my own personal story. Now, for those of you who don't know, like many of you don't know who I am or anything like that, but for those of you who might have known me in the past, like you would have known that I was this person that like was almost like the epitome of like health. If you looked at me, you would have thought everything I was doing was like, I would have been the healthiest person. I would have been feeling the best that I could possibly feel, because I ate really good food. You know, I'm a homesteader. I grew a lot of my own food. And even when I wasn't growing it, I was locally sourcing it. Like all my, the nutrients in the food would have been like at the most prime time to like eat it, you know, and like I exercise. I used to be really into like CrossFit and like just staying really fit. And now I'm just like farm fit, right? still trying to stay fit, but like not like I used to be. And I used to do all this internal work, healing from traumas and like, you know, meditations and like just all these things that I was doing everything you could imagine. But I was chronically sick, you guys, for like many, many years, like chronically sick. I spent so much time laying in my bed. My kids would be like, "Mom, are you going to come play today?" And I'd be like, "No, like mommy is another day when mommy can't get out of bed." Like I had such low energy. I had vertigo so bad that sometimes my husband would literally have to drive me to the chiropractor, because if I would like turn my head to switch lanes, like everything would be like busy and I'd be like not safe to drive a car. I used to have blood sugar issues that would just drop like this. And all of a sudden I'd be like, "Oh my gosh." And I would just grab food and like shove it in my face. And the next thing you know, I'd be exhausted because my body was, I don't know what was going on. It was just like up and down. Like I couldn't figure it out. I was so desperate, and I'm more into the holistic world, right? But I like was so desperate that I took myself to a medical doctor. I went into an MD's office. I like my husband, it was when I passed out in the living room once, and he's like, "I'm done. We're going to a doctor." Like I literally was on my way to the couch because I didn't feel good. And I started getting dizzy, and I didn't make it to the couch. I passed out in the middle of my floor, and he's like, "I'm taking you to the doctor. Like, I'm done. Like, we need to figure out what's going on." And sure enough, the doctor's like, "Your labs are all great. Like, you're healthy as a horse. You're just a mom. You're just really tired. You probably need more coffee." I was like, "Really?" So anyways, like even though everything seemed like everything was fine, like it wasn't fine. I was like, "Listen, doctor, I wouldn't be here if something wasn't seriously wrong." Right. And so what I ended up finding out on my own was I had severe chronic dehydration. You guys, things that got so bad. And I really, truly believe it was when I was nursing. I was nursing my daughter until she was 3 years old. And I love nursing and I would have done it all over again. But I don't think I was ever able to replenish everything that she quite literally sucked out of me. She sucked me dry. And I just slowly started declining after having her. And like, I was drinking water. That's the thing, is I was drinking water, but it's like the water that I was drinking was not replenishing my body. It was not hydrating my cells. And I just continued to get worse and worse and worse. And it wasn't until I started drinking living structured water that I started to feel better. And that's not me saying that this water cured me, because I'm not going to say I'm cured or healed or whatever, because I'm just saying that when I started drinking water, I started to feel better. And that's all that I'm going to leave it at. And I no longer have that low energy. I no longer have the issues I used to have. And I feel good and I feel vibrant. And I know that dehydration is a problem that many people struggle with and maybe don't even know they're struggling with it. So I want to talk to you about microclustering and how our water is able to help people that do suffer from dehydration, whether it's chronic or whether it's severe or whether it's not, like just dehydration in general. So if you think about water and you think about water that comes out of your tap or that comes out of a bottle or that comes out of even like a municipal holding tank, right? Where most water from that's being pumped to houses sits in a municipal holding tank. Water is not designed to do that. Water is designed to like freely move in nature and like run over rocks down a riverbed and like be moving. It's constantly moving all the time. When it becomes stagnant, it kind of sort of dies. And when it kind of sort of dies, the oxygen molecule out of the H2O molecule becomes, it has somewhat of a positive charge, like a slightly positive charge. And when that slightly positive charge does, it actually attracts to it other molecules, and they clump together in these large clusters. And, you know, these numbers are kind of like, there's not an exact number. This is just to give you like a demonstration, but you could probably get anywhere from 15 to 20 clusters out of your tap water. You pour the tap water out and they all kind of bubble and clump together. And so this limits the absorption by the body and by your cells, because if you know your cell has a tiny little aquaporin, this is tiny little hole, and that's where the process of osmosis occurs. That's where the cell can actually take in the water molecule to begin hydrating itself. So when you have a big cluster like that together, it's really hard for the cell to be able to accept it. So you can kind of do like a visualization in your mind. If you have the aquaporin of your cell and you have this big cluster of grapes, let's say, and they're all clumped together and they're all, you know, they got a positive charge to them and they're all holding on tightly to each other, and you're trying to squeeze this entire bundle of grapes into this tiny little hole, it's not going to make it in very well, right? It's not going to make it in, which is why people can literally chug a gallon of water a day and still be chronically dehydrated, because your cells are not able to absorb all of the water you're drinking. So what happens when it goes through this electrolysis process that Louise was just telling you about, as it runs over those plates and picks up that electrical charge, what happens is it gives a negative charge to the water, right? So imagine those grapes that are clumped together. When it has a negative charge, they kind of repel and they kind of break up and they kind of repel away from each other. And then each individual grape is able to make it in that aquaporin much more efficiently than a big cluster of grapes together, right? So that's just kind of one of your visualizations for you guys. So you can kind of see what microclustering is, kind of broken down in like layman's terms, right? Another thing you can picture is if you have the cells of your body, picture them like a chain link fence, right? And imagine taking tennis balls and trying to chuck tennis balls through the chain link fence. Not very many of them are going to make it through, right? But take those tennis balls and turn them into golf balls. How many golf balls are going to make it through the chain link fence? A lot more than the tennis balls, right? Like, so that's kind of what microclustering is. That's why Kangen water is able to hydrate our body. That's why if you took a glass of Kangen water or structured water or electrolyzed reduced water and you chugged it, you wouldn't get the same bloated feeling. You wouldn't get the same upset stomach feeling that you would if you took a bottle of bottled water and chugged that. You would get a stomach ache. You wouldn't feel good. You'd start feeling like it was sloshing around in your stomach. You'd pee it out before you actually absorbed it. That doesn't happen when you drink microclustered water, which is why you're able to hydrate your body so much more efficiently than drinking dead water. Oops. So now we're going to go into acidity, and the second reason, or one of the second, I guess, causes of illness, and how water can help with that. There we go. You're still muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so lots of people are aware that, you know, acidic bodies are just the perfect host for so many diseases, from bacteria to fungus to candida to and to cancer as well. You know, there's all of these things that literally just thrive in an acidic body. But what they can't thrive in is an alkaline body. And that's, we have a choice, you know, we have a choice over what our body has, you know, and we can make a difference to that. And that's one thing that I didn't really understand before. I never really knew that we could change that and prevent it. But, you know, those diseases, they really struggle to thrive in alkaline situations. And that's why it's really important to not leave ourselves in an acidic state, which is what so much of our regular water does, because it's, you know, some of the waters might be kind of more alkaline, but, you know, if you start distilling them and reverse osmosising, then you're drinking acidic water, and it's really problematic. And, you know, also diet is a part of that, but you can really change it. And, you know, that's where the Kangen water comes in, because it's so beautifully rich and such a great pH. You know, you can have up to 9.5 and drink that. You know, like most others are, you know, an 8.5, any that are kind of more alkaline anyway, they're not a 9.5. And you've got these two options, you know, you've got alkalized or you've got alkaline, you know, and a lot of people recognize the problem with reverse osmosis and distilled water, and so therefore they add additives afterwards. They add minerals back in to try and realkaline it and like give it some goodness back, because, you know, if you're drinking water that's got no minerals in, it will actually leach them from your body. But these aren't bioavailable minerals. They're not the natural ones. And it's like, why would you take a supplement when you could just have it naturally? Whereas alkalized water is produced in that electrolysis state. You know, that's where it concentrates all the minerals up through that top tap, and we get all of that goodness from the natural water in its natural state, as it was provided to us, you know, in the beginning. So, you know, like I said, alkaline water, you know, it can contain additives, you know, from calcium to baking soda, and this just builds up in the body and it causes problems, you know, from all sorts of things, from like alkalosis, kidney stones, heart conditions. You know, it's not, like I say, it's not bioavailable. You know, it's not in a form that our body can actually use and utilize, and therefore it causes problems. You know, and again, it always comes in plastic bottles. So, you know, again, that you know, can leach into the water that we're drinking. So you can buy alkaline water or you can buy alkaline drops. Both of them always come in plastic. So, you know, you're then adding those chemicals into the mix. And, you know, and again, if you're buying bottled alkaline water, then, you know, the single-use plastics, you know, because it's not just about us, it's not just about what can we get from our water. It's like we've got to think about the environment, we've got to think about the world and the impact that we're having everywhere. And like I say, with 4 children, when I tried this, it was just ridiculous. I just couldn't bear it, seeing how much we got through. And yeah, and the cost, it was expensive, you know, it costs a lot of money. And you know, and that's an ongoing cost. It never stops, you know, like, you know, yes, there's buying a Kangen machine, but you do that once. Whereas, you know, buying water over and over and over again, you know, it's, you know, you have to keep buying it every week. And you know, and the cost of everything is going up right now. So it would be problematic to carry on. Yeah, and so as we talked about, you know, distilled and reverse osmosis water is demineralized and acidic. And I know a lot of people consider these to get a whole house system, and I can see the appeal of that. And that was something I quizzed Louise on, going, but what do I do about the water in my bathroom sink? And, you know, now we just take a cup of Kangen water. It's not that tricky, but, you know, and I see the appeal of that, but it makes the tap water in your kitchen undrinkable. So, you know, it's been proven. And again, you know, while we've got research showing all the wonderful benefits of hydrogen-rich electrolyzed reduced water, we've also got research proving that drinking demineralized water is a risk factor in serious health conditions, like from hypertension to coronary heart disease, ulcers, bone fractures, you know, and again, more cancer. So, you know, the alternatives are problematic, you know, as well as believing in Kangen and the water that we get from it, you know, the alternatives are problematic. And this is where I kept getting to over my 2 years of research. You know, I kept researching, I kept going, but I can't bring myself to be putting additives in and having to do this. And, you know, and I don't want to strip it dead, because that's like having it's like having a ready meal that once upon a time had good ingredients, but, you know, it's been so over processed that it's just of no use to my body at all. And I didn't want that, but I didn't know of the alternative until I recently found Kangen, so I was super excited. And yeah, and as we've talked about inflammation in the body, you know, it's just phenomenal how it just calms it all down. You know, it just eases that tension and that, you know, because inflammation occurs, you know, when we are dehydrated, you know, it's, you know, and also, you know, from, you know, cells that just aren't being able to function properly. You know, if a cell can't function properly, then it will get inflamed, and, you know, it's a sign of something going wrong. And what's the best way to heal it? Well, with molecular hydrogen and with good water that can actually truly hydrate. And so it really eases inflammation. And I have to say, that's one of the things that I've been really shocked about for myself, is because it's something I really struggle with. And just seeing how much it reduces that inflammation in my own body, yeah, in all cells. And yeah, it's phenomenal. So, you know, and as we've talked about, we've got molecular hydrogen in there. And, you know, what this does is this, because antioxidants are amazing, and you can get antioxidants from a number of things. You know, blueberries are great, for example. You know, they're in various superfoods. And great, eat those too. Like, I'd never say don't eat them, but to have this in your water that you're drinking day in, day out, and it's your main source of going through your body, you know, and antioxidants, their kind of main job, they almost actively seek out free radicals to extinguish them from your body. You know, they protect your DNA, they nourish your immune system, you know, and free radicals is really problematic. They cause aging, they damage your DNA, they cause cancer. And, you know, and when you then tie that in with environmental pollutants, you know, and the cellular damage and free radicals, you know, you've just got a really perfect storm for a lot of disease. But that can't happen when there's antioxidants flying around your system on a regular basis, all day, every day. And the great thing is, you actually can't overdo it with molecular hydrogen, because some of them you can, some antioxidants like can be too much for your body, but hydrogen is actually the only one that you can't do. And so you can keep drinking to your heart's content, and and know that you're giving your immune system the best chance to deal with anything that comes in. And this is something that's really important for me and my children, because as a single mum of 4, I don't have time for us to get sick. Like, I just don't I don't know time for that. And so we don't get sick. I've managed to keep us exceptionally healthy. And I went looking for clean water. Like, that's what I was looking for, clean water that didn't strip out the minerals, because I knew that was bad. But to get antioxidants in our system all day, every day as well, is just phenomenal, because now I can trust that my children's immune systems are going to be even stronger, and even more potent. So I'm offering them huge amounts of protection going as they grow up. Like, what more could I want for my children but to be protected from illness? And yeah, it's been thoroughly studied. It's not just something that we're saying. It's not something that Louise just touts and made up, but this is something that is thoroughly studied and proven. And like I say, they scavenge and they eliminate free radicals. And what more could we want? We live in a day and age where cancer is now supposedly meant to affect 1 in 2 of us. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my children either. So anything that we can do to reduce that risk, and if it's as simple as drinking water, which I was going to do anyway, that suits me. I don't want to have to do a whole load of extra stuff. Like, just drinking some good water will do me fine. And so here's an example of the reduction of inflammation. So these are some of the thermographics that Louise was talking about earlier. So, on the left is, I believe this is you, isn't it, Louise? This is Louise, and you can see the different areas. So the red and yellow is where the inflammation is, and there's all these big patches. And just 1 year of drinking Kangen water, they're significantly reduced. They've gone to green, and there'll always be some inflammation, but the reduction is huge. And you can see the impact on the body, and that means that the cells are able to work better and properly, and therefore are going to be regenerating properly, and it just adds longevity to life and health. So, as we said, this has been found in nature, so, and scientists have compared the water from I'm not sure how to pronounce Nordino in Germany to the water that we comes from the Kangen machine, and they're just as effective as each other. And these places are revered for their natural healing water. People go on pilgrimages. That's what I did. I went on a pilgrimage to Lourdes because it's classed as a holy land, because it heals people. And we can have that in our home, which I was just like, well, yeah, I want Lourdes water in my home. Gimme. Like, I went there, gosh, my eldest, who turned 16 yesterday, she was 2 when we went. So, that was 14 years ago. I haven't had it for a while. So I was all up for having it in my home for sure.
Oh my gosh, I've been saying it wrong this whole time. I always say Lourdes, but it's Lourdes. It's just Lourdes.
Yeah, Lourdes.
Oh my gosh, I've been saying it wrong for like 2.5 years. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And
oh,
do you want to do this one?
No, this is you, right?
Yeah, this one was me. And is it safe to consume this water that has been electrically reduced? Well, yeah, it's, there is no harm in it. It's still just water. It's still just water. And, obviously we wouldn't recommend, because obviously when it's electrically reduced, it can create all different pHs. We recommend drinking, the 9.5. But this water has been studied more than any other water. You know, there's hundreds of peer-reviewed and double-blind studies. You know, I've started geeking out. I've started reading which ones I'm like, oh, look at this one and look at this one. So for anybody who loves their research, like there's endless amounts of it. And it's a certified medical grade device used in Japan and Australia. And it's used in just Japanese hospitals, you know. So some doctors even prescribe it to their patients as treatment because it mimics that natural process from the naturally reduced water. It's not a completely alien concept. You know, this is something that we're just blessed to be able to have at home, that we could get in a few lucky places around the world. So, but before it goes into the electrolysis, obviously there are still some elements that we want to ensure that we have taken out of the water, because, you know, as we know, the tap water is full of neurotoxins and carcinogens and things like that. So all of the Kangans that we sell come with one of these pre-filters. And these are just phenomenal. Again, you know, I spent years researching of what actually works, because lots of filters make claims that they don't actually live up to. So, you know, with this, it first goes through the activated alumina, and this does something called adsorbs contaminants, including fluoride. So this isn't absorbing, because when you absorb something like a sponge absorbs water, if you squeeze it, it can come out again. Whereas when it adsorbs, basically these are porous, balls, basically, not necessarily ball shaped, but porous pieces, and they adsorb. So they take in these contaminants like fluoride, and they bring it into the pores, and they never get released again. So they're completely held, they're completely safe. So it goes in and it never comes out. It's not going to come out like a bit down the line. And it's the only thing that actually any big plants, or, you know, anybody that needs pure water in an industrial scale, they all use activated alumina to get fluoride and things out of it. And then obviously it goes through a compression disc, because that filters out any microplastics and sediment, actual pieces that we don't want in there. And then, you know, it goes up into the coconut shell carbon, which removes the last things like chlorine, pesticides, you know, aluminium, VOCs, you know. And so therefore it gets through all of those things that we just don't want in our water, and removes them really effectively in a way that's proven, and, you know, it's trusted like in industry standards. And then, you know, and then we get to put it through the electrolysis system, which then restructures it and gives us our amazing water.
Yeah, I love that. It's like clean the water first. That's like the first step, you know, clean water is important. And then you restructure it and you electrolyze, reduce it, and all that. So I'm so glad that you added that part in about the pre-filter, because I think it's important for everyone to know that your water is being pre-filtered before it goes through the Conga machine. And anybody who does purchase a machine through through us, we gift that pre-filter to you. So it's not something that you have to purchase. It's something that just comes with it. So I'm going to share with you guys a testimonial really quickly. Testimonial. I just realized that's spelled wrong. Testimonial. Yep, that's spelled wrong. Sorry, my brain. Sorry. I just realized there's missing an I there. That's okay. I'll add that later. This is actually the lady that introduced me to Kangen water. I'm so grateful for her. You can actually see the reason I like to show this one is because, you know, just like you guys could see my body, like you saw the before and afters of the inflammation, like when I could feel the difference in how I felt when after I was drinking water, like it was amazing, right? But then when I could see the difference, I was like, whoa. It's like next level. Like I could see all that reduced inflammation. I can feel my energy back. I can feel how good I feel. I can feel that I no longer have dizziness and vertigo and blood sugar stuff that I used to have. Like I could feel that, but then I saw it and I was like, dude. So this is a similar thing with her, right? This is when she started her Kangen journey, and this over, you know, it's probably now been more than 2 years, probably been about 3 for her, maybe a little more. She was chronically dehydrated. No matter how much she drank, her cells were just not quenched. She had extremely dark circles under her eyes, signaling kidney deficiency. Her skin looked month old and she was frequently ill, and her children had dental issues, which is another thing like Louise kind of brought up when you're drinking reverse osmosis water. Water is either a giver or a taker, right? If it doesn't have minerals in it while it rushes or flushes through your body, it takes from your body. And so lots of people who drank demineralized water or reverse osmosis or overfiltered water oftentimes end up with dental issues, and her kids were not any different. But everything changed for her when she switched over to water that is alkalized, microclustered. And there's so much good science on the therapeutic effects of drinking electrolyzed reduced water that it made perfect sense why she experienced such a resurgence in her health, right? And this is a story, this is just one of so many people that have their own stories. You can look at the science of Kangen water all day long and be like, well, that's cool, but how does this apply in real life? Like, what does this actually look like in real life? Here's one of the examples of what it looks like in real life. I'm one of the examples of what it looks like in real life. There's so many people that have examples of what it looks like in real life and how you can actually drink this water, hydrate your cells at a much deeper level, and feel better in life. But this was just one of the ones that I feel like you can see in the picture that she almost sort of kind of aged backwards, really. Like when you look at her picture after 2 years of drinking water, which to me is pretty incredible. And then we also want to talk about how Kangen water is really not just for drinking. Like Louise mentioned, there's different pH options that you can select on your machine. There's pH is all the way as low as 2.5, all the way up to as high as 11.5. And the higher that you go up in a pH, the more microclustered your water becomes. And our 11.5, there's actually a video in our Facebook group. So if you're watching this on Zoom and you're not in the Facebook group, you should get in the Facebook group because there's lots of videos in there that you can watch and take a look around at some of the information. If you're watching this live in the Facebook group, you should go back and look for that. I think Jessica Bellafato posted it 2 weeks ago, maybe. And it was her taking water, tap water, and then taking her Kangen 11.5 water and mixing it with some oil. I don't know what oil she used. I think maybe olive oil. I'm not sure. But you can see that the water actually emulsifies, like it mixes with oil. And so it's used as a degreaser. It's my husband has literally cleaned an oil spill off of a driveway and you couldn't even tell there was oil there. Like it's crazy. And then the 2.5, we're actually creating hypochlorous acid right there in our kitchen sink. And if you're not familiar with HOCl, what that is a very, very strong disinfectant. In the hospitals in Japan, just like Louise mentioned, they actually use this to sterilize surgical equipment. Like this is how powerfully disinfecting this, I was about to say material, but product or liquid is. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is right now, but it's a disinfectant and it's a product that's very disinfecting. You can use it to, I've replaced my laundry detergent. You can use it to replace all of your cleaners. You can use it to replace your mouthwash, your household. There's so much you can do with this water, like so much that I wouldn't even be able to go into all of it because we'd need like a whole separate webinar on all the different ways you can use the water. And there actually is a webinar in our group about all the different ways you can use the water. I think it's about an hour long. And anyone who decides to purchase gets a booklet. It's called 75 Ways to Use the Water, and it breaks down each type of water and all the different ways you can use the water. So that's pretty awesome as well. But just know that it's not just for drinking. Also love that it's good for our mama, right? We have to be protecting our mama. Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic goes into the ocean. Like Louise was mentioning, with 4 kids in her family, all the plastic, imagine that's just one family. And that's so much waste, right? That's so much waste. And I'm not here to judge anybody if you drink plastic water bottles. I don't judge. I just try to educate, right? That's all that it is. But I used to buy those big 5-gallon jugs of alkaline water from my grocery store before I bought a Kangen machine. And even with that, I feel so much better about not contributing to plastic. But it's not just the bottle of water that you're drinking, but it's also all the cleaners, all the detergents, all the things that I used to buy that I no longer have to. I'm also saving plastic in that aspect as well. So anyways, the plastic production and consumption are predicted to double over the next 10 years. And that's just absolutely insane to me. So any type of thing that we can do to contribute to helping that plastic consumption go down is going to be a win in my books, right? Kangen is a low waste product. I wouldn't say no waste because there is, I wouldn't say zero, but definitely eliminating about 90% of more of your household products if you want to. When I first got my machine, I got it for the health benefits. I slowly started drinking it, experiencing all this stuff. And then I learned, like each week I learned like a new thing the water could do, and I would try it out for this, and then I would try it for something else. And you kind of start experimenting when you have your machine and you start learning all the different ways you can use it. And there's a lot of ways you can use it. So it's good for Mama Earth. And then also Anagic is the name of our company. We are a brand leader and a pioneer in ionizers. We are the water ionizing pioneers. We're the first ones, right? Actually, this year we celebrated our 48-year anniversary. So we're a 48-year-old company. We've almost been around for 50 years. And to me, that's so crazy because over here, like in the US and even in the UK, like it hasn't really made that big of a name for itself yet. In Japan, everybody has water ionizers. They're all drinking them. They've got them in restaurants. My friend April, actually, her husband was stationed in Japan. He's in the US military. And I started posting about Congo machines about 2 years ago on my social media. And she like messaged me. She's like, I see these all over the place, because they lived in Japan for like 4 years when he was stationed there. And she's like, I never knew what they were until I saw your Facebook post. And I realized that, like, she's like, all the restaurants and all these places I go to have Congo machines everywhere. And she's like, I just never knew what they were. So in Japan, like, they've had them for a long time, right? And we're just now starting to catch on to the bandwagon. Like, we're a little late to the game here, but that's okay. Late is better than never. But it's nice to know that we're almost a 50-year-old company. We've been around for a very long time. We're really, really well established. All of our parts are OEM, and what that stands for is original equipment manufacturer. So every piece, every part of our Congo machines is made in-house. So we don't outsource anything to make, we don't like, we like, the quality of our product is the most important thing. So we're not gonna, what am I trying to say? Like, cut corners to try to get cheaper stuff. Like, we're not gonna be like, well, I can make my machine cheaper if I just outsource this product from China, or like whatever. Like, we don't do that. We'd rather have whatever the product is. We want it to make sure that it remains a really high quality product. And the only way to completely, truly control the product or the quality of the product is to make every single piece of it from in-house. And that's what we do, including the cardboard box, you guys. Even the cardboard box that we ship our machines are made from the cardboard that we make, which is pretty cool. We have multiple international certifications for quality because of exactly that. Like, our quality is very, very high. We use titanium and platinum, medical grade, no cheap alloys. We don't use any of the mesh stuff. You know, there are other water ionizing companies that are like, well, I have a water ionizer and it's like a mesh plate. And they're like, well, I can make it for a little bit cheaper than you can get your Congo machine for. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not as good, right? So we don't want to compromise on that quality. We have up to 5-year warranties on all of our machines. And then you have extended warranty options available, but these machines will last you 30 plus years. I literally was just at a conference in Vegas in February. I didn't go to Vegas for the party. I went to Vegas to talk to people about Congo water. It was a chiropractic conference where there was like, I don't know how many thousands of chiropractors were there, and they were all coming up to our booth because we were there with Kangen water and we were trying to hydrate everyone. We're like, hey, you guys want some Kangen water? And they were like, yeah. So every person, I would ask them, have you ever heard of Kangen? And I was so surprised on how many of them were like, oh yeah, I heard about this, you know, and they had the machine for 20 years. They've had their machine for 20 years and it's still working just as good. And so I actually interviewed one of the guys I met at the conference, because I'm like, will you tell me how your machine still works after having it for 20 years? And so in our group, again, there's an interview. He's not a chiropractor, he's a compound pharmacist, but he goes through like 600 gallons of water a week in his compound pharmacy, helping people feel better on this water. And he's had his machine for like 20, like, they last a really long time, you guys. Again, that's back to the fact that we have really high quality products. And I think that the Japanese are pretty well known for making really high quality products like that. We also have yearly cleaning and maintenance for the life of the machine that you can send in to the company. If you choose to, they will actually deep clean your machine for you once a year. And there's financing options that are available for everyone, including 0% interest with no credit checks, which is really helpful for some people about wanting to get one of these into their home. Like Louise mentioned, yes, there is an investment that comes with owning one of these machines. But it's a one-time investment, right? You make it that one time, and then once you own this machine, you own it for life. It's not like you're going to have to buy it all the time like you do with bottled water. Like every single week you have to go out and buy more. Like once you own a machine, you literally own it for life. It's amazing. It's probably the best investment that I've ever made into my health, which is just something that I don't think I could ever put a price on. You know, the way that I feel and how I feel better now in life is just something that I could never put a price tag on. The interest-free financing is available in some countries. In most countries, the US and the UK, that's available. So it just depends on where you are, but you can always reach out to the person who invited you to this webinar, and they will help you understand whether or not wherever you live offers the interest-free financing or not. But I do like to put it on there just so people do know that there is an option to be able to finance a machine if you really, really want one, and you're looking for different ways that you can get your hands on one. So thank you for your time. Make sure you join us on our Facebook group to learn more and get more educated. I'm actually going to pull up the Facebook group right now to see if there's any questions. And then Louise, I don't know if you have anything you want to add. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen, and then anybody that's on the Zoom call can then also ask questions in case anybody has anything that they want to ask. Do you have anything that you want to add right away, Louise?
No, I think we covered that pretty well.
I think we did pretty good. And look, we kept it at 51 minutes. We did good. That's awesome. Cool. Well, does anybody have any questions here? And I want to say thank you to Louise for jumping in with me, because I think that she's super knowledgeable on, like, when her and I first started talking about the water, like when she does her research, she like does her research. So Louise is coming out here and telling you that you can trust that she has looked into it. And she would always say, oh, I got one more question. And I'm like, and she's like, oh, one more question. And I'm like, it's okay, ask away, because some of the questions she's asking me, I was like learning while she's asking me. I'm like, I don't know the answers to that, but I'm going to find out for you. So it's always nice to be around people that are researching things so that, you can fully feel really good about the decision that you're making. And, we always say, don't take our word for it. Like, you can do your own research for it yourself, and we have a lot of that research for you available in the Facebook group and in other ways. Just make sure that you're reaching out to whoever invited you here so they can send you whatever information you're looking for. So, yes. Who's got questions? Questions. Anybody got a question? I'm going to read through here and see if there's any questions on the Facebook group. Anybody that's live have anything they want to ask or say? Gemma asked, I think I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying that right. Do you need to replace any filters at all? Yes, that's a really good question. So the filter there's two different filters. So like Louise mentioned, there's a pre-filter. And so you'll change that filter out. It kind of sort of depends. If you if you have fluoride in your water, you're going to want to replace that filter probably every three to 4 months or so. But the replacement filter is not a whole lot for that. It's around like $25. And then your filter that's inside the Conga machine, you'll probably want to replace that about once a year. I know people that guy I was telling you about, the compound pharmacist, he changes his filter out once a week because he goes through so much water. But I change my filter out once a year, and I go through quite a bit of water. Like me, I have a family of 4, and I also share water with a lot of people, and I still have at least a year out of my filters, and sometimes even a little bit longer. And I think the fact that we pre-filter the water before it goes into the Conga machine actually makes our filters inside the Conga machine last a little bit longer. But I tell people on average, you're probably going to change your filter out once a year inside your machine and a couple times a year of your pre-filter. Hopefully that's helpful, Gemma. I know you're multitasking while listening. So, but that's a really great question. Jess said it was olive oil that she did her video on. Okay, cool. Let's see, anybody else?
Okay, so let's try it now.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it done so many times. I want to try it myself. I think it's really good with sesame seed oil too. I think it even mixes even better. It's like crazy. I've seen the video, but it's nuts. Cool. Well, I'm wondering here, Susan, Lucy, Nikki. Oh, Lucy, is an electrolysis enhancer called sodium hypochlorite used in the machine? No. So there's an electrolysis enhancer that is used if you're making hypochlorous acid. And so this is one thing that a lot of people ask about, because, but nothing like that is ever used for drinking Kangen water. So Kangen water doesn't add anything to the water. It has a filter that goes inside the machine for the water, but it doesn't add anything. So it filters out, but then it doesn't add any minerals, doesn't add any chemicals, doesn't add anything to your water. If you're going to create hypochlorous acid, so here's another thing, hypochlorous acid, which is HOCl, is the medical grade disinfectant that we talked about. You have to use a saline solution that you run through the machine. If you don't use a saline solution, you're not creating HOCl, you're just creating an acidic water. Acidic water could be Coca-Cola, Sprite, like there's all kinds of different acidic waters, right? So if you're actually going to create true hypochlorous acid, you have to use a saline solution. If you don't use a saline solution, you're only just creating a certain pH. It's not actually giving you that therapeutic disinfecting property that's going to kill, like that's going to be strong enough to like disinfect in like a surgical equipment. So yes, you will have a saline solution released into your machine when you select the 2.5, but only when you select the 2.5, not for any of the drinking water. I know there's some misinformation out there that floats around saying that Kangen adds chemicals to our water, and we absolutely do not. But if you want to create 2.5 hypochlorous acid, you do have an electrolysis enhancer that you'll add when you're making that type of water. That's a really good question. Let's see, anybody else? Lucy, thank you. You're welcome. thank you for the question. That's a good one. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think that might be it. So if anyone has, anyone's watching this live in the group, obviously you can put a question on at any point and we'll come back and answer it. Obviously if you're on Zoom, then once we leave, we're gone, but you can go into our Facebook group, which is called Kangen Water Collective. And you can find this. If you think of a question later that you thought you were like, oh, I should ask this, just go into our group and you can ask it there and we'll get back to you as soon as we see it. So awesome. Well, thank you, Louise. It was a pleasure doing this.
Thank you, Louise.
I love it. The Louises. And we're out. Do you want to say anything before we hop off?
No, just just hope that was helpful. And yeah, we're like I say, like Louise said, I asked every question under the sun. And some people don't need to do that. If you do, then there are people willing to answer all the questions. So yeah, because it's an investment, and it's worth being sure, because then you're really confident and happy and secure in what you've done, and you're going to get the best. And that's where I kind of got to, is I was like, yeah, this is absolutely the best thing for me and my children. I've got no doubts about that. So yeah, I'm really happy.
That's awesome. Yay. Awesome. Yes, I love that. I think that we're all about, I think everybody in this space probably is all about informed consent, right? We want to make sure that everybody knows what you're getting yourself into, and you can't make an informed decision if you don't have the answer. So if you feel like you have a question, there's no question too stupid to ask, just ask it. We're happy to answer it because we want you to feel good about your decision. We don't want you to buy something and be like, oh, what have I done? We want you to think about it first and then make the decision. And then once you have it, then you'll know, like Louise, you'll feel good. You'll feel confident. You'll feel like, I know what I'm getting myself into and I'm happy with the decision that I made. So I absolutely love that. And I like that you ask a lot of questions. It helps us all learn. It helps us all.
It might stop one day. We'll see.
Awesome. All right. Well, I know over in the UK it's getting late, so hopefully you guys have a good night. And here in the US, it's middle of the day, so we all can enjoy the rest of our day. You guys take care.
Bye.
Bye.